Today, we're going to go through the different investment strategies to ultimately invest in oil and gas. There's an ebook that I made that you can click and download that's going to go through this in more detail, have industry experts talking about their experience, and ultimately allowing you to understand more about oil and gas investing, how it relates to real estate, and how you can invest yourself. We're going to go through the different types of assets and how to go about in terms of due diligence, as well as making the most of an investment that you could make and things to consider that you wouldn't know until you actually made the investment. Now, I wanted to start off to share that if you are an investor who's ultimately looking to understand private wealth secrets for the ultra high net worth individuals, visit investorsguidetojoy.com/wealth to apply to our investor group. Ultimately, there's 3 asset classes that we're going to go through specifically today around mineral rights, which are going to be passive income from land rights. It's beneficial because it's stable and it's low risk, but the cons of it are really its limited growth, especially if prices stall. Now, producing assets such as active wells with steady output, that is going to give you predictive cash flow. The challenge is that ultimately that's going to be less upside potential because you just have that cash flow. Think of like a multifamily building that has no value add, just is what it is, right? Now, there's also drilling opportunities, and this kind of ranges in some of the description, so I lumped them together. It's really the difference between proven sites all the way to wildcat exploration, which is basically poking the hole in the ground and hoping there's oil or thinking there's oil, right? Now, this is going to be certainly high reward potential, but ultimately is also high risk, and there's ultimately scrutiny around it because you could invest in something that doesn't actually produce anything. Now, I just went through these types, but I'm going to go through the best type after we learn about different ways to invest. There's syndications, which are ultimately a pool of funds that are diversified to be able to invest in a larger project. There's also direct placements, which are good for solo contributors who are looking to own a fractional share of the oil and gas production, which ultimately gives them extreme benefits. Now, as I mentioned, the best type of oil and gas investing that I found as a real estate individual, as well as a high income W-2 professional, is ultimately going to be direct private placements that is going to be in a lease or ultimately several wells within the investment that ultimately has existing wells because they're already cash flowing, right? But they also have the ability to improve, whether that be additional drilling or optimizing their current drilling, because you're then going to get depreciation on that equipment. That equipment is then going to offset the investment that you make, and you're still going to get that cash flow. So what this means in the smallest, simplest way is that if you invest less than 100,000, you get 100% write-off of that investment to offset your taxable income. That then is also going to give you, traditionally within oil and gas, 15 to 30% annualized returns. That's completely passive. It's also diversified because it's within oil and gas and not potentially real estate or stocks that you already might have investments in. That is the best that I've found in terms of investing because there's different nuances with other types in terms of not getting taxes, not getting as much cash flow, having additional risk, or potentially losing the money that you put in. Again, there's more information in the ebook, but I just wanted to call out that specifically so you know and understand that you want to do leases and not well bore, because well bore is a single well, leases are a group of wells. I've seen investors get stuck on that from time to time as well, and ultimately are disappointed to learn that after they've invested. Now, as we go through this piece, it's important to think of how you're going about investing. So with due diligence, asking things like where the asset is, the operator's history, if they're modern, so they're horizontal, or kind of old school, essentially vertical. Vertical are more predictable, horizontal is more experimental in a lot of ways. And so that's also a risk-adjusted return to understand what that percentage and what that ability is, because it's not all the same. Now, if you're also thinking about how technology plays in the oil and gas, you would be correct. There's certainly AI and predictive maintenance that can certainly bring down downtime and save about 20 to 30% based on a McKinsey study. There's definitely a number of things that are happening technology-wise to operationalize these wells more beneficially, as well as proactively to recognize what the supply and demand currently is, how the operations are working, and ultimately what levers operators can pull so that they can have the best operations to produce the most amount of income with the least amount of output as there's changes in the commodity market. Now, as we think about the investment needed within oil and gas, there's about a $4 trillion investment gap, which could tighten supply and ultimately lifting prices. And certainly the natural gas demand needed from AI is also going to increase. Also, renewables and economic slowdowns really are also going to change and create a different sort of demand metric for oil and gas. Now, if you're interested in the types of prices that we're expected to in the next decade, I made a different video on that. But ultimately, if you're going to invest in oil and gas, it's important to know the different types, some of the questions to ask, and learning what is best for you for what you're trying to solve for. Again, the best example I gave was direct working interests that have leases that are going to be vertical and ultimately are going to allow you to get that tax savings, cash flow, and diversification. More information is also in the ebook on that and other details that you want to know. If there are questions or things that come up, put them down in the comments and subscribe to hear more about oil and gas or other types of investments. I do read the comments and respond to them and also make new videos on them. Thanks so much for joining today's video. We'll see you on the next one.